Welcome back to the Balance Sheet, where we talk about all things women's wrestling. I am one of your co-hosts, King Ajar.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Man, we got a lot to cover this week. A lot to cover. There is a lot going on in the world of women's wrestling. A lot of it is amazing. Some of it not so much, or at least I would say controversial. We will get there. But let's start right at the top. AEW Collision last night, Saturday night show. Uh, Readily, I will admit I do not watch this show, but I got the news that Mercedes was going to be on this show. So I was like, okay. And then when you follow the social media tea leaves, you notice Athena's going to be there, Billy Starks is going to be there. And it's like, oh, we're finally going to get this long awaited face off between these two very high profile competitors who carry a lot of gold that they have been teasing for a while on social media. So AEW Collision last night looked like a show that Shawn Michaels produced. There was a
Yeah.
lot of women's wrestling on that show. The opening angle was with Timeless Tony Storm, and she cut a promo, I guess, on how she lost to Megan Bayne and what that means for her. And, let's just start right at the top here with that segment. I don't know if there's anybody more over in AEW right now than Timeless Tony Storm. She got the loudest pop, and she seems to be the most over talent. What did you think of that setup with her and Penelope and Megan Bayne?
Yeah, no, Tony's probably the most confident performer on the mic, maybe in all of wrestling right now. And it's kind of fun because it feels like she can kind of just say whatever, right? I mean, she was talking about waking up in cold sweat or waking up sweating because she lost and took a piss and looked in the mirror and remembered who she is in only the way Tony Storm can deliver, timeless Tony can deliver those lines. But um I loved how on purpose something like this was, but it got a lot of buzz. The camera angle of Penelope,
Amazing.
amazing. And like WWE did a couple
Amazing.
things like this a couple months ago, not that specific, but I mean, playing around with camera angles and different things like that really should be part of the show because that stuff goes viral really easily. I don't
Mhm.
know how many times on Twitter I saw Tony get kicked in the face and you just got Penelope there like, hey, and it just even for people who don't tune into Collision, that's something that's going to get into the wrestling space. So really, really well done, whoever produced that. Hats off to him. Love the segment. I am less. I was feeling pretty confident that they're just doing the full Brock Lesnar, Megan Bayne um, deal. I'm actually fully confident the other way now. I think based off of Tony getting pinned clean, also Megan uh, coming out on top. I think Tony's going to win, and that's also based on some of the other tea leaves we have going, other developments on the show. But it was a great segment. I'm interested to see the match. They have built, Megan Bayne up like a monster. So it'll be interesting to see how Tony, if she does beat her, how she does beat her. And then we got Penelope versus Tony coming up on Dynamite. It's a good segment.
Yeah, it was a good opening segment. Usually you open with your hottest act. I don't know anybody in that company that's hotter than Timeless Tony Storm, honestly, male or female. She's on fire right now. She gets the ovation. The commentators actually do a very good job with her. They're like, oh, she's gracing us with her presence, and she's like the greatest thing ever. And that's what you need to do with your world champion. But I
Yep.
think the more buzzworthy segment from last night's Collision, and we'll get right to it. So Mercedes made her Collision debut. I don't think she's ever wrestled on Collision until last night. She
Right.
wrestled Robyn Renegade, which is one of the Renegade twins, and
Yep.
They had a decent match. I mean, it was what it was. It was a TV one segment match, and Mercedes was to win and look dominant, and
Not
she
quite a
did.
squash, but
No,
dominated. Gave some offense though. Yep.
for a Mercedes Monet match, that was a squash. Mercedes Monet doesn't have those matches where she wrestles, gets all of her stuff in, the opponent maybe gets a punch and just loses. Like this, she doesn't work that way. That whoever wrestles her, even if it looks like to us, wow, that was a pretty quick match, they're gonna get a lot of stuff in. So she beats Robyn Renegade. Tony Schiavone comes into the ring, interviews the champ. She says, I want more gold, so I'm going to enter the Owen Hart tournament. They asked her about the heart of Billy Starks. She said, I don't want to hear about Billy Starks. Let's talk about Robyn Renegade. She showed more heart than Billy. Who taught Billy Starks? Whoever taught her sucks. Music hits. Out comes your forever ROH champion. The What does she call herself? The minions, the queen of the minions, or
Minion overlord. Minion overlord.
minion overlord. Um, she comes out, the forever ROH champion, over 800 days. She comes out, they do the little pirouette stare. Crowd's kind of getting into it. Twitter is probably going crazy. I didn't get to look at it live. I was
It
busy.
was.
People are probably losing their mind. And, you know, Mercedes puts her belt down, typical heel move, tried to hit her with the other belt, did not work, got clocked in her face
Yep.
as Athena was setting her up for, I guess what it's called now, the MO.
O face.
O face. It used to be in the WWE world, the Eclipse. Robyn Renegade comes out nonchalantly to look at Mercedes, make sure she's okay. Mercedes then kind of moves her into position correctly. Athena hits her move. Mercedes rolls out. They're talking trash to each other. Great. Go backstage. Athena says, I'm entering the Owen Hart tournament. I want your belt. Cut a really good promo. Great stuff from Athena, setting the stage for a match that a lot of people have wanted to see, including both the competitors. If you listen to both of them talk in various interviews, Athena has said this is like a measuring stick dream match for her with Mercedes. And Mercedes has always wanted to wrestle Athena in a feud where I think they get to control the in ring storytelling, they get to control the characters because they did have a very memorable three-way in WWE. I
Yep.
can't remember. It was a four-way. It was a four-way. They might have had a
Ruby and
three-way
Alexa.
too. They
Yeah.
might have had the three-way too, because back then that's what Mercedes was doing. She was in multi-person matches.
The memorable one was the four way though, where Athena plastered Mercedes through the guardrail on like a low rope suicide dive type of deal.
Yeah, that was one of the all-time memorable spots from that era of
Oh yeah.
WWE women's wrestling. Because if you go back and look, they had no direction. It was just match after match after match.
They were they were in the Money in the Bank together too, right? Isn't it Athena that put her through the ladder, which she generally says is the worst bump she ever took?
Yep, yeah,
Yeah.
Athena did
So
that. That ladder match, if I'm not mistaken, was the ladder match that Twitter correctly predicted, which was Alexa's going to do no work, but she's going to climb the ladder, get the briefcase, and get the cheer. And that's exactly what happened. And that night she cashed in on Rousey, which I think is one of the better cash-ins of all time for the women, which was Alexa Bliss's cash in. And I don't know if it was as great as it because the crowd made it great, but the
yeah.
crowd went bonkers for that.
No, I mean I didn't enjoy it in the moment. I was mad about who was working hard and who wasn't, and who was getting flowers and who wasn't, right? That was peak days of like Sasha, Naomi, um, Even Becky, I think, taking some gnarly bumps in that match just for Alexa to just like go grab the belt. Not a fun time.
So
Also known as
yeah,
Mercedes' least favorite gear of all time, the Sprite gear.
Sprite. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that was Money in the Bank 2018.
Yeah.
So Money in the Bank 2018, a little set the stage here. A month earlier, Mercedes just re-signed her new contract. So Mercedes' contract was up, and I guess at the last minute she signed, and that's why she ended up beating Ruby Riott to get into Money in the Bank. Because originally she was, if she wasn't going to resign, she would have lost to Ruby, probably left. Ruby would have gone on, but she won. And it was interesting because that ladder match actually spawned the man Becky Lynch. If you really think about it, that ladder match was the genesis of the Becky Lynch rise, because Chicago was so behind Becky Lynch, almost as much as Alexa, maybe even more. I got to go back and watch, but she didn't get the win.
Right.
And I remember her and Mercedes on Twitter not being happy about how they've kind of put the work in and they weren't getting anything from it. And that SummerSlam is where Becky Lynch turned on Charlotte, but turned as what? I mean, she got the loudest cheer of the whole night, but okay, cool. Fast forward the clock, Mercedes left at WrestleMania 2019, comes back with the blue hair Sasha Banks, and her career has never really been the same since, to a positive. I think she's been as good as she's ever been. So
She needed that turn. Well, they tried to turn Becky and they already had Becky over. If you go back and look at that Money in the Bank, Sasha was less over
she was.
multi-woman match. Like if you compare Royal Rumble 2018, where she was one of the most over women, Money in the Bank 2018, she was not someone, when she was doing the ladder thing and going up, the crowd wasn't really like, yeah, we want her to win. She could have used the heel turn, obviously, in that moment all the way through when she actually did. It was,
Chicago, yeah, let's call it what it is. Chicago was booing her. Every time she climbed
yeah.
the ladder, they were booing her. And I know a lot of folks, that's the dark times of the Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné fandom. Those are like the dark ages. So nobody talks about those times.
Well, now that we've given everyone listening some PTSD, you're welcome, everyone. Into the light ages with Mercedes Moné is in the Owen Hart tournament, and who else is in the tournament?
Mercedes,
Athena,
Athena, Jamie Hayter,
Jamie Hayter,
Billy
Billy
Stark,
Starks,
yeah,
Thunder Rosa,
Thunder Rosa.
Chris Statlander.
Mm-hmm.
Two more people to be named. Ideally, like Willow,
Deeb.
Deeb. I heard Marina Shafir, right? If the Willow and Marina thing could end up in there. Either way, we got two spots left, and at least one of them is probably going to be someone who's, dream match or dream rematch for Mercedes. So I thought Athena's promo that she cut backstage was really, really good.
Yep.
For reintroducing her to AEW, for people who haven't been watching ROH, some of the best stuff I've seen her do on the mic, much more confident than she was back when she was on, just call it regular TV. I'm sure she's been doing great work in ROH, or I know she has. I've seen it, but like on a big show, that was some of her best work. Um, man, I'm excited for this. I think everyone's excited for this. And to your point, did Twitter blow up? Yeah. Even WWE fans were like, "Holy crap, this is happening." Because it never. We went through the 2018 history because they crossed paths a lot and they had spots in every one of these matches, but they've never wrestled a one-on-one match.
Yeah. Well, look, Athena has always been very good in the ring. She's had the classic match with Asuka. She's had some really good matches with Shayna. She's had some really good matches pre WWE. I mean, she's always been like a hot commodity in the ring. I will readily admit this because we like to keep it honest with everybody listening. I have never really been the biggest Athena fan from a character standpoint. I always thought about her as lacking a lot of charisma, but I will say this: what I saw last night, that is definitely the best version of her. And she sounds super confident, and she definitely has an arrogant character that I could definitely get behind. Obviously, I would not cheer for her against Mercedes, but I like the direction that she's going in. You know, the Minion Overlord, like she has her catchphrases down. Um, you know, American Joshi, Forever Champion. Like she seems to have that stuff down, and she's
Yeah,
very confident in what she's delivering. The Owen Hart tournament, let's talk about that a little bit, has a chance to be the best women's wrestling tournament in the history of North America, because the
absolutely.
only thing you can compare it to are the Mae Young Classics.
Right.
But the Mae Young Classics are always was always more of a, these are the up and coming wrestlers in it, and we are seeing who the future is. These are
Right.
established women. I mean, these are established stars in the ring. They have pedigree, they have following. You know, in Mercedes, you have, arguably one of the biggest women stars in the world, if not the biggest, depending on how you look at it. You have Athena, who is this long range champion. You have Chris, you have Willow, possibly. You have Billy Starks, you have Hater.
Mariah May could come
Mar-
back to defend her title in it, right? She won it
Well,
last year.
we need to talk about Mariah May here in a bit. But I want to say this to Tony Khan and to I guess Jen Pepperman, guess RJ City has a lot to do with the Timeless Tony Storm character. They have done a really good job in 2025 of re-emphasizing their women's division.
Yep.
I think Tony got spooked by the backlash he received from his own AEW um, followers, his own AEW fans, about Tony and Mariah May not main eventing Revolution. I think he has taken it to heart about not necessarily promoting Mercedes correctly, but always letting her have the matches. And I have noticed that he seems to be watching a lot of NXT, because these AEW shows now are starting to remind me more and more of NXT shows, which I still think, I'm not talking about in-ring quality or match quality. I mean, from a presentation standpoint, I think the women are presented better in NXT than any other company.
For sure they are.
They get the time, they get the stories, they get the promos, everything is interconnected, and it's the only company in wrestling where clear cut the face of the company is a woman. Clear cut. You can make arguments, oh, well, it's Mercedes. You can't really say that in AEW, given that Moxley is seemingly on 12 segments. But in NXT, Stephanie Vacour is the face of that company.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about Stephanie in her week, but let's talk about something that you have a strong opinion on, and you wanted to kind of cut your own promo here. So I'll set the stage, and I'm going to hand the microphone to you. Mercedes was last night on Collision in, as I guess she maybe put on Twitter, or somebody put on Twitter, cold ass Milwaukee. 3,000 people, pretty decent house, but it was like a winter storm there. And recently, a WWE Hall of Famer, Kevin Nash, I don't know, it might have been his podcast, made a comment that he said Mercedes CEO Sasha, whatever her name is, she's phoning it in. That is not the same woman who I saw tear the house down with Bailey, which, oh, by the way, was only 10 years ago. And at some point, we kind of have to move on. People evolve. But nonetheless, let's stick to what he said. He said she phoned it in, which in essence means she's coming to work, collecting a check, and not trying. And I'll obviously, piggyback off of what you have to say, but I think anybody who has two functioning eyes and watches wrestling knows she's anything but phoning it in. But take it away.
God, where to start? So Kevin Nash, I'd like to say he would be an expert at showing up, collecting a check, and not doing too much. But if so, he'd be able to, call a spade a spade. But um, disappointing, but not surprising. It's disappointing because if Kevin Nash does have a legacy that he's left wrestling, if you want to say Kevin Nash has a legacy he left pro wrestling, it's kind of along the lines of this free agency, knowing your worth, be willing to take a risk, and making good on that risk, and going and grabbing the money that you feel you deserve. So you would think that this would be someone who would see what Mercedes has done and understand it and have the utmost respect for it, because he left WWE as Diesel and showed up, as everyone knows, with Scott Hall in WCW, and was a huge part of igniting the run that WCW went on. Can't take that away from him.
Oh,
That's his legacy. Broke Goldberg's streak. An overbooked mess. It doesn't land the way breaking most streaks does because it was an overbooked mess. But those are the two things people probably remember. NWO. But behind the scenes, from a business standpoint, yeah, he vouched for himself, knew his worth, and got paid. This is also a man who underachieved in the ring most of his whole career. He was always in and around the main event scene from Diesel on, never had a great match. Wasn't led by an all-time great, right? His best matches were with Shawn. I think he's got a really good match with Undertaker. I think he's got a really good match with Bret Hart. Like, okay. I don't single great match that the man ever had that, was like, dang, Diesel or Nash had that great match. And that's what's so offensive about this. Mercedes is one of the greatest in-ring workers of all time. Period. She just is. If you hate her for XYZ, do that. She's one of the greatest in-ring workers of all time. And if you haven't been watching AEW, what she's done is she's taking a WWE style pace of a match and doing AEW style movesets and bumps. And she's really kind of found a home for that since October and made that her own, right? She's not doing these crazy spot fest sprints that some other AEW people do, but she's absolutely layering in the type of spots that Kevin Nash, I don't know that he did his whole career, right? It's offensive to say she's phoning it in because she's really risking her body, as all wrestlers do, but she's pushing the envelope. And the ridiculous thing about what he said was, I saw her match, she went on third. And so thinking through it, the Momo match went on third, right?
uh-huh.
Come on, man. If you watch that match and say anyone's phoning it in, you're just full of shit, and you're enjoying your WWE Legends paycheck. Because I mean, she basically told Momo, kick the shit out of me, right? She did the trio woe. Momo kicks her in the chest like many times, kicks her in the face. And you know how we know that Mercedes is down for this and said, lay it in? There's no receipts, right? If Momo's not supposed to kick her like that, aren't there receipts at some point?
Uh-huh.
With no receipts. Hey Mercedes, how'd you feel about your match with Momo? Per Mercedes, don't listen to the media. Per Mercedes in the Monet magazine newsletter, love wrestling Momo. Love the match. But this negative media thing we've created in just sports, right? The Stephen A. Smith, LeBron James stuff, Kevin Nash, wrestling podcasters going out and being negative about because they're aligned with WWE or whatever. It's just garbage, man. It's just shit. And it's not based in any sort of reality. And shame on Kevin Nash, because again, Mercedes has probably taken more risky bumps in 2025 than dude took the last 10, 15 years of his career. That's a fact. So he probably needs to keep her name out of his mouth. She is a WrestleMania main eventer and a Hall of Famer by herself. Kevin Nash is like a Hall of Famer as like part of a group. Like that's who we're talking about here. So he should probably shut the hell up. That's how I feel.
So I'll add to what you have to say, but I'm going to look at it from a different lens. First off, for my recollection, and I've watched Kevin Nash's whole career from Oz to Vinny
Vinny
Vegas,
Vegas.
yeah, to Vinny Vegas to obviously, Big Daddy Cool Diesel to Kevin Nash. I remember 3 good matches he's had in his career. He had a Survivor Series match with Bret Hart, which was excellent. But I mean, I could wrestle Bret Hart and have a good match in his prime. That was
Yep.
1995. 1996, he had the classic in your house, good friends, better enemies match with Shawn Michaels in Omaha, Nebraska, where Kevin Nash took Mad Dog Vachon's prosthetic leg off of him and beat Shawn Michaels with it. That match was fantastic. But again, 1996 Shawn Michaels, I could probably get a good match out of Shawn Michaels too, right? And then the
Yep.
third match is the match you already mentioned, which was against The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Those are the 3 kind of standout Kevin Nash matches of my life. But none of those matches are going to be inducted into the newly minted WWE Hall of Fame for WrestleMania or great matches. I mean, they were great matches for Kevin Nash, but I don't think Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels would list it as their top matches of all time. Neither would
If they did,
Undertaker.
it would be because they drug him to a great match and he's dead weight.
Right. So, yeah, they look at it as it was a carry job.
Right.
Um, from a business standpoint, Kevin Nash is one of the most impactful wrestlers of all time. He is, whether you want to
Yeah.
give him the credit or not. And we are not here to disparage his contributions to wrestling. He has contributed a lot, especially from the free agent standpoint, their money going up, etc. Here's my well, I have a couple of different problems with this. Number one, I wish the media, the wrestling media, the Kevin Nashes, the Jim Cornettes, the folks who clearly don't like AEW. If you don't watch the product, just say so. Like, say,
Yeah.
I didn't watch the product. I heard she's over in AEW, but I don't really mess with it. She's not in WWE. When she comes back as Sasha Banks, I'll pay attention. Fine. At least you're being honest. You're saying, I don't watch the product. A lot of people, it seems like, don't watch her work in AEW because they are fixated on the Sasha Banks WWE character. That's your prerogative. You do not have to watch AEW because we're telling you to watch AEW. But then if you're going to make a comment about it, then actually watch the product.
Yep.
Actually say, okay, wow, they're phoning it in because I watched this match and this is what I saw in the match that tells me she's phoning it in. But to say, oh, she's going on third, that's almost like, well, look, she's third on the card, so she would absolutely be phoning it in because she's not in the main event or in the semi or opening match. He's not watching the product. He clearly doesn't watch the product. And you know how I
Didn't know
know?
her last name.
And the reason I know he doesn't watch the product is because he is a WWE is the best. I'm on a WWE Legends deal. two of my best friends in life are the heads of this company from a creative standpoint. Triple H is the number one head, and Shawn Michaels is number two because he runs NXT. And they're two of his best friends. But here's where I think he's insulting them. And I put this on Twitter and or X or whatever they call it, and I will now reiterate my point. The biggest star in NXT is Stephanie Vacour. She is the face of the company. She is the double champion. She opens the show. She closes the show. She did that both this week in matches, nonetheless. Stephanie Vacour got signed by WWE because of a match she had with the phoning it in Mercedes Moné. Okay, so the two people who are primarily responsible for him being a big deal in WWE, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, know enough about Mercedes that they watch her matches in AEW, take and then saw this competitor in Stephanie against her and signed her the next 48 hours. Now, yeah, it could be 100% true. And I believe Stephanie, I watched all her interviews, that her dream was always WWE. And I'm not saying she's lying and just because they paid her more money and all this. No, she's probably right. But she doesn't get discovered by WWE if she isn't wrestling Mercedes. And that's a fact. Right. So the person who Kevin Nash says is phoning it in, phoned it in so poorly, I guess, that the other opponent got signed and is now the face of Shawn Michaels NXT. And it's singularly because of Mercedes Moné, because Stephanie Vacour was wrestling all over the world prior to that match.
And JPW Strong Champion, CMLL Champion.
She beat Julia. She beat Tessa Blanchard. She had another match with Mercedes, which a lot of people think is better than the second match. You never heard anybody in the media, in these dirt sheets, say, "Oh, WWE's looking at Stephanie Vacour." As soon as she has the match with Mercedes and the crowd kind of really got behind Stephanie, that Sunday night, the everybody's favorite observer said, "Hey, WWE's looking at her now. WWE is looking at her now." And then Tuesday, they announced that she signed or whatever. I can't remember what the timeline was, but I remember Shawn Michaels was the one who put it on Twitter that he signed her.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? It's like if you're an NFL team and you got a first round pick and you go scout this wide receiver and you're watching all the tape and you're like, God, I can't wait to draft this guy sixth. I know I'm drafting this guy sixth. Then you watch game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, game 6, game 7. Get to game 8. Stat sheet, 3 catches for 37 yards. What the hell happened? You watch the game and there's this slightly, maybe not quite on the radar. You knew about him, but you see him just dogging this wide receiver every play, keeping up with them, fighting with the hands, gets a pass interference penalty here or there, but just won't let the wide receiver have one play off. And you draft that kid with your second round pick because you know that your first round pick has the goods. That cornerback needs to be on your team as well. That's what it reminds me of, because they knew that Mercedes is a first round talent. And then you see them together and you're like, I want that one too. They can't have Mercedes right now, so they go out and they get the corner. Yeah, I got Kevin Nash thing. I just want to clarify something real quick. I hate to, I'm criticizing the guy. He put his body on the line for a long time. His style wasn't, this dump type of guy, but he had a lot of hip surgeries, knee surgeries. I don't doubt that he gave everything in his body to the business. I'm not one to sit here and criticize anyone taking bumps. But why I'm so upset about it is because he knows what this business does to someone's body. And to say that Mercedes is phoning it in when she's actually putting on the matches of her life and putting under known talent, giving them a spotlight, whether she's putting them on a map or giving them a bigger spotlight. 18-0 in AEW, and she hasn't phoned in a single one of those matches.
Well, and
And and
that's
and and she's bumped her ass off for these women, and shame on him for questioning that.
well, that's the other thing. Her matches are amazing. Like her
Yeah,
matches have been phenomenal, right? Well, not only the AEW matches, but the New Japan matches.
right.
Obviously the Rev Pro match. Like she's put on a killer resume after leaving WWE, which rivals her WWE resume, might be better. Like she's been on fire as an in-ring performer since leaving WWE. That's what was the most perplexing about his comment. But the truth is, the comment should have just been this. She left WWE. I don't really watch her. I don't know what she's doing. I'll check her out when she comes back to WWE. That's
If
it.
he want, yeah, if he wants to undermine her, a real comment could have been like, "Yeah, I'm not paying attention, but obviously with where their ratings of business is at, she can't be setting the world on fire too much." Like that's
Yeah.
something he could have said, which maybe not would be half true, half not true. For the record, real quick, that Milwaukee gate last night, tickets moved a lot after she was announced, and I believe that the attendance was higher than the last Dynamite show there, which she was not on.
It
FYI, for those
it
who want to
was
know.
it was higher than the last Dynamite show, which was, I believe, September 4th, 2024. I don't know. Like I don't know. I mean, I saw somebody put that up out there that the tickets moved a lot from when she was announced, and I'm not denying that. I don't have any data or numbers um to speak about. I tried to find them for the show, but I couldn't. But yeah, back to what I was saying. I get it. I've seen this with her specifically. I don't know why. When you leave WWE, there is a large percentage of wrestling fans that do not follow you. They just don't, because they are fans of the Shield more than they are the competitor, even though they tell you they're fans of the competitor. Look, as great as Punk was for AEW for a little bit of time, where he did elevate business, pay-per-views, all that stuff, it's still a fraction of what he was going to get coming back to WWE. And that's just how the business goes. WWE is Kleenex. It's the name brand. AEW, even though I guess on the Boston show, they will then be the longest running wrestling program on TBS, or they'll have the most episodes on TNT, TBS, etc., on Turner, which is tremendous. This is not even a 10-year-old company, and they've done monster business, and they should be proud of that. But Kevin Nash, like a lot of the older, very tied to WWE wrestlers, they don't really watch AEW. They don't. And that's why I stay away from making comments about a lot of the men's division in AEW, because I do watch the pay-per-views, but I don't keep up with week in storylines for a lot of the men. Like I'm interested in the Hurt Syndicate. I'm interested in Ricochet. I like Swerve and Hangman. That's about it for me. But I would never go out there and say, "Oh, you know what, man, that I don't know, whoever wrestler, Moxley, he's phoning it in. The guy's taking spikes to his back.
Right.
He's not phoning it in. I just don't watch it." And I think that a lot of folks could benefit from just being honest. Like they don't watch her because she's not in WWE.
Right.
Rather than making general stupid statements like, "Oh, she lost her aura. She's not the same in-ring performer. She hasn't had a good match since her matches with Bianca at WrestleMania." Like I saw that one on Twitter, which is her last good match was Bianca at WrestleMania. It's like, what are we watching here? That
What's so
was
funny about that? SI
four
had
years
her in
ago.
4 of the top 10 matches last year, and SI is not an AEW entity, guys. Like
No,
SI actually leans WWE if they can, because that's the bigger fit. They want good
Mhm.
publicity with WWE. She had 4 of the top 10 matches. So y'all sound stupid.
No, they do. They do. And honestly, like my biggest frustration is the lying. Like you brought up LeBron, Stephen A. Smith, which is the hot kind of media story of the moment. But like 3 weeks ago, another very prominent NBA analyst, which is Shaquille O'Neal, talked about how the Pistons suck and how they're bad and oh, what's the record? And then the guy gives them the record and he's like, oh, well, who cares? It's like
Yeah,
you're paid
to
$20
care.
million to watch basketball. Like that's what your job is. And that's my problem with a lot of the media landscape. I have a sister who is a journalist by trade. That's what she does for a living. She's very good at it, but she has readily admitted that the social media talking heads space has just ruined journalism because there's no real reporting out there. And that goes for not just wrestling, that goes for basketball, that goes for anything. Like, besides the NFL, I don't know a sport that is covered correctly in America, honestly. Like
Yeah.
I feel like the NFL, and even that there's hit or misses, but like just hearing somebody talk about a team that is actually a top 6 team in the conference and has victories over the Celtics and the Cavs, it's like, hey, this is a good team here. Like, what are you watching?
Has an all NBA player who was a former number one pick. Like that's where we're at, guys. A number one pick has gotten great. NBA media doesn't think it's important to cover it. NBA media.
Yeah, I
And
don't know. And then like I heard the other thing, and I know you're a Pistons fan, so you'll get
uh,
offended by this, but I can't remember who it was. It might have been Gilbert Arenas, but he goes, "Oh, Cade Cunningham's a great player. He's unbelievable. He just has to get out of Detroit because Detroit's a small market." And it's like, do people even know what small markets, big markets are anymore? The Detroit Pistons have historically been the number one attendance team in the NBA. It's either been them or the Bulls. For my
yep,
whole life, it's been those two teams. So it's like, you don't even know what you're talking about in terms of market. Like the Pistons in the 80s, the Isaiah Thomas Pistons were one of the biggest draws on local TV in all of sports. Like they got more Detroit people watching their games than LA people watch Laker games or Boston people watch Celtics games. Like they're a big deal. So when they're good, it's actually good for the league. But like my point to all this is it's like do your homework and watch the product or don't make the comment at all. Like
right.
it would be better for Kevin Nash or anybody to say, you know what, I don't watch her in AEW because I don't care about her. Fine. You have a right to do that. But don't lie and say she's phoning it in. That's our problem, right? He's
Yeah.
just lying. Speaking of maybe phoning it in, well, before we get to the WWE side and the controversy with the main event, Mariah May, one of the hottest women's performers in the world, coming off of the only rated North American women's wrestling match that got 5 stars, the free agent. And her or soon to be a free agent. And her contract allegedly is up in the summer. So there's a lot of buzz and a lot of rumor that she's gonna go to WWE.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about Mariah May being a free agent? And what are your thoughts about her possibly going to WWE? And what do you think about that?
Yeah. So Mariah May is a pre-prime main event marquee level talent. And what I mean by pre-prime is I don't think she's gotten to her prime yet, not just based on age, but ring wear and tear. Um, she's really, really good at this, and she hasn't been doing this that long, right? She was a fan not that long ago. but her bump card is probably that of a woman at least 5 years younger than her, and she's young to begin with, right? For the industry. So can't lose her if you're Tony Khan. Um, this is not like a Cody Rhodes thing where it's like it would suck to lose Cody Rhodes, but also Cody and the AEW crowd had gotten to like an impasse on who he wanted to be, who they wanted him to be, and it just wasn't. Cody Rhodes wasn't working for AEW anymore, and he's the top star in WWE. It's not ideal for Tony, but I don't know what done different except for overpaying Cody and not getting. He wouldn't have gotten this out of Cody ever in AEW. Mariah May's different. The AEW crowd loves her.
Mm-hmm.
Got mic talent. She's got the look. She wrestles like someone who, is crazy about the sport. So we all appreciate that. And you can't let WWE get her. And if WWE gets her, you need to give Mariah such an offer that WWE getting her will screw up their order and their locker room. And what I mean by that is you have to basically give Mariah Mercedes is making, you probably start slotting her in second in the company. I don't know when Tony Storm's contract is up, but this is how contracts work. It's whoever's up next. You probably have to just come to grips with that she'll be the second highest paid woman in your company and not by a far amount. She probably needs to be close, and here's why. We know Mercedes is still the top in wrestling, and I say that because if WWE had broken that number, they would have said it. That's something they would have liked to brag about. That's my opinion. I don't know that from source fact. There may be stuff in there where Mercedes makes money off her IP and blah, blah, blah. The bar is up there. Rhea's probably close. Maybe Rhea passed her. I think WWE would have said it if Rhea passed her, but that's just my opinion. You have to offer Mariah May so much money that she'll make more than Alexa. She'll make more than Bailey. She'll make more than Bianca's current contract. She'll make more than maybe Charlotte's contract. I don't know these numbers, but you have to put a number up there that would not only cost WWE a lot of money now, but it would cost them more money when Bianca's contract comes up, who I think Bianca will get the top contract in the sport. It'll cause Charlotte to say, hey, whoa. It'll cause women who've put in work a long time in WWE to reevaluate their contract. And frankly, if they were to lose Mariah May to WWE, they're going to have to try to work to get people back. TKO does have a budget. Kind of said a lot there, but you basically need to not dick around, excuse my French, and give Mariah May a top of the market offer.
Yeah, I think it would be good for the wrestling business, the women's wrestling business, for Mariah May to stay in AEW.
Yeah.
And it's simple. She goes to WWE. She's gonna get pushed. There's no question about it. They will push her to the moon because she's a free agent and she's the shiny toy. And they want to prove to AEW, hey, you didn't know what to do with her. They did it with Cody. They did it with Jade. They're doing it with Sean Spears. They're gonna do it with Ricky Saints. I wouldn't say they did it with Stephanie Vacour. I feel like when they saw Stephanie, they kind of saw their next Rey Mysterio and they figured it out real quick and they said, okay, we have a plan. But if Mariah May does go to WWE, it's a lethal blow to AEW. It really is. Mariah May, for all intents and purposes, is homegrown. She is part of the biggest women's storyline the company has ever had by far. I mean, there's nothing close to the stuff she did with Tony that anybody else has had. And she's become a big star on AEW TV. And you know what? I gotta be honest. Mariah May, put it this way. There's an old man who helped find the WWE who is drooling that he never got to book Mariah May.
Yeah.
Like, they've been looking for the next Trish Stratus for a long time. And I mean, they have a lot of great aesthetically looking women: Liv Morgan, Alexa Bliss, Tiffany Stratton. Mariah May checks every single box that those women check too. She has everything. She can talk, she can wrestle, she has the look, she has the it factor, she has a presence. If I'm Tony, I don't give her a blank check, but honestly, maybe I do. Maybe I pay her more than Mercedes, and I'll tell you why. Because she's worth more to him than she is going to be to WWE, and her going to WWE is going to be a huge blow to him because you invested all this money and story time and TV time in this character. She was one of the most on-screen people of the last couple of years, and now you just let her walk to the competitor because you don't get your stuff in order. The Stephanie
He,
McCourt thing, I know everybody blames him for not signing Stephanie sooner. And maybe and they're right. Looking, put it this way, he would have been better served to overpay Stephanie and keep her on the shelf than allow what's happening now, because Stephanie is Stephanie is beating him in the ratings every week. And I know everybody says ratings don't matter, but CW is beating AEW every week, and Stephanie is the primary person on AEW on NXT TV. But with Mariah May, he's got to sign her. He has no choice. He has got to sign her, and I think he will sign her. That's my prediction.
yeah,
I think she
I,
stays.
I think he might have to pay a little bit of a dream tax.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mariah's dream is to be in WWE, but you know, her initial dream was she wanted to be in WWE. I think she loves wrestling so much, though, and I agree with you. I think Tony can sign her as long as he doesn't try to get a home. Here's the thing. She grew up in AEW for all intents and purposes, like you said, even though she did a lot of great work in Japan and Stardom. He should not assume she will give a hometown discount. If anything, he's got to give a dream tax, and that he's just got to pay her and pay her maybe a little bit more to not have her chasing that WWE. Can I make it over there? And so just pay the tax, get her on the show. Thing that helps. Tony did just win a bidding war for the latest women's free agent because WWE was interested in Mina Shirakawa. I don't know that they offered a contract, but it was out there reported by multiple sources that she would have a decision to make between both,
Mm-hmm.
and she chose AEW pretty quickly. So that's a great get for them. Mina's fantastic, great on screen. Oh, by the way, her and Mariah are very, very, very
Yeah,
close. So that absolutely
that's
helps.
that's the important news item here, is that her best friend, or one of her best friends, is Mariah May. Um, Here's what I would, if I were somebody who went to law school, if I were Mariah May's agent, I wouldn't sign anything until I talked to WWE officially. Like, if I were Mariah May's agent, I would let the contract expire, and then I would take the WWE meeting and see what it is and make a decision. I would not re-sign with AEW without hearing what WWE has to say, simply because that's good business.
It is, and and that's kind of if you guys enjoy listening to our show, we try to set any tribalism aside, and we are for all these women making more money. And
Yep.
the reason why Mercedes got the biggest contract ever is she could have went wherever she wanted. She didn't have a no compete. She didn't have nothing. She was
Mhm.
free, scot free. And when you're scot free, you have leverage. You have leverage to say, what will you offer me? What will you offer me? What will you offer me? And I agree with you. And AEW fans should not be mad at Mariah May if she does that. And
She
Tony
should. Yeah.
should do it. She'll
Yeah.
get better money either way by doing that. She should do
Yeah.
that.
And what is she gonna take a WWE meeting, and that's gonna insult Tony Khan so much that he's not gonna re-sign her? No. In fact, if she goes to WWE, meets with them, and still chooses the AEW, that's a huge win for Tony. Because
Yep.
now it's officially, hey, they got to talk to her without the backdoor channels and all this stuff. Like, look, I know everybody thinks that any AEW person who comes into WWE is going to be pushed like Cody Rhodes. That is not true. Look at Andrade. That
Yep.
is not true. Is Andrade even on this show? No. So it all depends on the who. But I will say this, if anybody other than Cody Rhodes or Jade Cargill, I know everybody thinks it's good, Ricky Saints, and that could happen too. I gotta tell you, Mariah May, though, could you imagine? I'm just playing fantasy booking here. Mariah May signs with WWE and she shows up and confronts Stephanie McCour on NXT.
That's the thing though, is I don't think I think the money has to get to the point where she's a straight to WWE type of deal.
But Stephanie got the money. That would have been straight to WWE, and she chose NXT.
Stephanie didn't get a top 5 deal. Mariah's going to get a top 5 deal. She does it right, she'll get a top 5 deal.
From what I know about the Stephanie situation, she's making more money than most of the women on the main roster.
Okay.
And she could have gone to the main roster. Like they told her, where do you want to go? And she chose NXT because she wasn't comfortable with her English, like to the degree of weekly WWE TV. And because NXT, as you know, is in one city mostly, she got a chance to familiarize herself with the US culture. Where, if you're WWE, you're traveling every week, right? Like they don't do house shows anymore, but you would have to go Fridays into a different city or Mondays to a different city. Whereas, and then the other part is Stephanie's real life best friend is Julia, and Julia is there. So she had a setup for her, but you're right, she's not making top 5 money, but she's making enough money where she would have been on the main roster. Like she could have been on the main roster.
That's fair. The point I'm making, I guess, is this. If Mariah May ends up in NXT, then we should all berate Tony Khan till the end of time. And what I mean is this. For her to end up in NXT, it will mean that Tony did not offer her enough money. And if
That's
Tony
true.
offers her the money he should, WWE would go Jade Cody like, no, you're not going to NXT. We're paying you third most in the company. You're going to debut at the Royal Rumble, or you're going to debut after summer timing, But what I'm saying is, if this is done right, Mariah gets the money she deserves. She'd have to be on WWE TV.
Yeah.
And the only way it wouldn't happen is because Tony tried to get a hometown discount that he should not expect to get.
I wouldn't. I would, if I were Mariah May, like I said, I would just wait my contract out, meet with both parties, but then I would hope Tony pays her enough and she goes back to AEW, because AEW has done right by her from the day she walked in the door. From the day she walked in the door, she's been in the biggest story that the company had for the women.
Yep.
So that's our. I mean, I feel like it would be the best thing for the wrestling business on the women's side for her to stay in AEW. So Tony, get it done, pay her money, and lock her up for a long time, because she deserves it, and she's a superstar, and you got to keep her.
I would, real quick, and I'm going to tee this up for you for the WrestleMania main event. But real quick, I would love for it to become a normal practice. The thing we're advocating for Mariah to do, WWE does not let performers do. Just to be clear here, if you let your contract run out in WWE about 6 months before it runs out or 9 months before it runs out, like you're gonna just start losing all your matches, right? Like Liv Morgan had to re-sign while she was still under contract. She doesn't get to talk to AEW. Bayley didn't talk to AEW. Like that's generally not the practice. I would love for all performers to get enough leverage in the wrestling business that there could be some true free agency. It would actually be better for the business. It'd be better for wrestling. But currently, almost nobody main event scene actually goes to a true free agency. They're usually pressured to re-sign.
Well, I mean, there are certain people like, okay, would it be great for our content if Rhea Ripley let her contract get expired? Because
Yeah,
what is WWE going to be like? Oh, I don't want Rhea Ripley. Oh, you didn't sign in 9 months. Goodbye. Like, what are they going to do? Not so. Of course, they're going to look at her. So I would have loved to see Rhea Ripley say, "Yeah, I'll just play this thing out." What it would is because AEW. I mean, Tony Khan would have been at her door with on his plane. It'd be like, Rio,
right.
here's the check. What do you want? I would have loved to see that scenario where Rhea Ripley, there's like a legitimate bidding war for her. But Rhea Ripley signed a new deal with 9 months left on her current deal
Yeah,
because they either she knew, hey, I'm not going anywhere, and then just came to her with a boatload of money and said, look, you're Rhea Ripley. Like this is your no,
that's
like
probably
you're Rhea Ripley. Like we're not letting you, Rhea. Even if you turn this money down, we're gonna come back, and it's gonna get to a point where you're gonna have to sign with us. So you might as like to me, Rhea Ripley's like one of those that they have a calendar on their Outlook. Oh, 9 months before contract, let's go get it done. Like she's in that class. But it would be good for us if Rhea Ripley be like I wanted Natty to let her contract run out
me
and
too.
see what's out there. And that's why what Mercedes did is even more remarkable. She got a clean break from WWE, and then she had the option of going back. I mean, for those of you who think we're making this up, she was supposed to be Naomi's partner at WrestleMania. Like, the Bianca, Naomi, Jade six person against Damage Control. That was supposed to be Mercedes. They thought she was going to come back. And they wrote that whole story for her. And then they got Jade. And then they put Jade in. But that's what it was supposed to be.
Yep.
So,
Becky's technically, I don't know if she's re-signed yet. Nobody knows, but she did go to true free agency too, which is interesting in and of itself. Okay.
okay. Before we go to the triple threat, let's
Yeah.
quickly talk about it. She did go to true free agency, but showed up at Netflix for WWE.
Right. Yeah.
Like, was
Yeah.
she ever a true free agent? I mean, I guess she was, but
Well, Becky did it because she's smart and she knew that she would get more money out of WWE by going to true free agency. And she's a big enough name and maybe just creatively unfulfilled enough that she was willing to make them call a bluff. Where
I
you're Rhea
still,
Ripley and you're creatively fulfilled, you're just like, yeah, dude, pay me more. I'm not going to AEW. Pay me more. Like, I get your point.
I still don't get why Becky didn't at least, and maybe she did, and we don't know about it. Have a real meeting with Tony Khan, like a real meeting, like almost put it on Twitter meeting. Like she's a free agent. She go into his house and they're having coffee, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm a free agent." Like, I'm shocked she didn't milk it for more because the one thing about Becky, you read her book, she likes being the man. It's not just the character she plays on TV. She likes being the big fish, the
Yep.
highest paid. Like these are things that mean something to her. So it's shocking that she didn't milk it for more. But yeah, all right. So we're gonna talk
Yeah.
about the women's three-way.
So Bianca, story continues. We've been pushing for them to main event. They should main event Mania was what we thought. No offense to Charlotte and Tiffany. If you wonder why we're not pushing for that, watch the last 2 or 3 episodes. It's all in there. Why that wouldn't be a Mania main event. Rhea, Bianca, Io, hot story. Games. Friday. The contract signing. It is put out there in a moment with Paul Heyman and CM Punk. Paul Heyman announces to CM Punk and the world on SmackDown that your boyhood dream is coming true. You are a Mania main eventer. You'll be main eventing night one. Seth Rollins hits his fist on the table. All of a sudden, Seth Rollins doesn't want to be in a Mania main event because he hates CM Punk so much. And Roman Reigns is at the end of the table laughing and finds it funny because, Mania main events, I guess, are just, any old run of the mill thing for him at this point. Or is there a story, right? And that's tee it up to you. So WWE says the main events will be Cody Rhodes and John Cena, and story they have said on screen through tweets, Triple H, Paul Heyman, CM Punk, night one, Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk for nothing. Bragging rights. Mania main event night one. Over the women.
Okay. So before I get to why logically the women should main event, let's look at the current canon stories of all of these things. Number one, they have not said which is night one and night two yet, main event. Although we kind of assume it'll be Cena, Cody, night two, but they haven't officially said it. Number two, what is the women's title match for WWE? What is it?
Bianca officially right now.
Is it? Because if Rhea and Io fight tomorrow night, there's a chance Io loses and it could be Rhea and Bianca. There's a chance it could be a three-way, right? So
right.
they've openly gone out of their way not to advertise Bianca and Io because they know that's not the official match, right?
Right.
So they technically can't even say it's a main event when they haven't really told you it's the official match.
Right.
Number three, and I've watched WWE a long time, probably longer than I care to talk about, but like when I watched that whole segment on Friday, I might have been the only person on earth looking at it this way, but I got more confident that the women would main event after watching that segment, not less. It seemed too easy for CM Punk's. Now, if CM Punk were the guy who sold out to The Rock, then it makes perfect sense. This is part of the perks. You sell out, you sell your soul, you get the main event. You're with the final boss. That makes sense to me. CM Punk, from everything he says on camera, is still a good guy. He's for the people. He is a martyr. And he didn't win the Royal Rumble. He didn't win the Elimination Chamber. He has no title. But he gets the main event so easily. Am I the only one that looks at this as a complete storyline where his story is to chase that main event, where he's going to almost come out and say, I didn't earn it? Reigns and Rollins are shaming him into not accepting it the way they're going. Reigns is like, get down on your knee and thank me that I get you the main event. And Rollins is losing his mind saying, no, you don't deserve it. He goes, I love main eventing, but I hate you even more where I don't think you should main event. To me, this is a story for CM Punk to next year win the Royal Rumble and earn the main event spot, which is what he has always said he wanted, is to earn the WrestleMania main event. And this is not an earning storyline. This is like, oh, I am part of a group project and I am getting it. And to me, I just don't think they're going to main event. I know they're saying it on paper. I know, oh, you're going to close the show. And Triple H, doesn't it? Am I the only one who doesn't think it seems too contrived and it's too much of a story? Like, it's too easy. It cannot be this easy for CM Punk, whose 2-year storyline in WWE has been, I want to main event WrestleMania. And he just gets it handed to him after losing a Rumble and losing an Elimination Chamber and then losing a cage match to Seth Rollins. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I could be totally wrong. I could look like a complete moron for even giving Triple H the benefit of the doubt that this is a long-term plan. But that's what he does. He books long-term. He doesn't book short-term. I mean, whether you like him or not as a booker, look at the Io Bailey thing. People were nervous. Oh my God, Bailey's not going to win the Rumble. There's no way. Becky's in it. Bianca's in it. Everybody's in it. Bailey's not going to win, and she did win. And the Io story was the long-term story. When everybody doubted that this thing would play out correctly, he did it. I think I think Punk is going to main event next year's WrestleMania. I don't think he's main eventing this year. And I could be totally wrong.
Well,
I could be totally
let me
wrong. Go
let
ahead.
me start with this. I hope you're right. See your logic. I think where people have doubts are, frankly, Roman Reigns hasn't shown that he doesn't not want to main event Mania. He was famously unhappy, not necessarily that the women main evented in 35, but he was famously unhappy that he didn't have something going that would have gotten him a main event in 35, right? He's never
Mhm.
saying the women shouldn't main event, but he's the top, like Roman Reigns. I've been a fan a long time. And by all stage, Joe is a great dude, right? Everyone loves Joe, locker room leader. The man thinks he should be main eventing Mania. And so, storyline, schmoryline, what you're saying, because yeah, it does seem way too easy. For you to be right, it also means that Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns basically said, "Yeah, you know what, cool, dude, we don't need the main event. We'll open or whatever." Like, because if they want the main event, unfortunately, they can have it.
Okay, now let me also add that caveat. I saw this on X, which is the women don't have the courage of a Mercedes Monet or a Sasha Banks, who famously in 2020 did knock on Vince McMahon's door. I know this, I have this source, did go to Vince McMahon in the fall of 2020 and said, I should main event WrestleMania. And there was either going to be her versus Bayley or her versus Bianca were the two matches. And, she basically laid her cards on the table and said, hey, I should main event WrestleMania. I deserve it. I'm that good. And she did get to do it. And she is that good. But let's be honest with ourselves here. I know we a lot of folks, especially in the crew, think Mercedes can walk on water. It's one thing to go to Vince McMahon or Triple H or Shawn Michaels and say, "Yeah, I want a main event over Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley." It's a totally another thing to knock on that door and say, "I want a main event over Roman Reigns." Because let's be honest here, you just said it. If Roman Reigns has said, I want to main event, then there's nothing Io Sky, Bianca Belair, or Rhea Ripley can do about it. Nothing. There is nothing they can do about it. They are not going to main event. If Roman Reigns says, I want to main event, I put your golden boy Cody over last year. Let Solo beat me.
It's
I
me
want
and
to.
Seth at Mania, me
Yeah,
and
it's me
CM
and
Punk at
Seth. Me and
Mania.
yeah. If Roman Reigns wasn't in this match, I don't think they main event. I don't think Seth versus Punk main events with no
Got it on
title. They've main evented on a Netflix show. Like there's nothing there. But yeah, my point is this all my theories go in the toilet if Roman Reigns behind the scenes says I want to main event. Then it doesn't matter. It's over. Fait accompli, game over, coup d'etat, whatever. Good night, Irene, whatever phrase you want to use. But my point is the way they're telling the story on TV doesn't make sense. That's all. That it's just going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's two levels of, call it, two levels of it. And one level is straight misogyny, and one level is a mixture of kind of like old time thinking and just personal pride. I'm not trying to give too much benefit of the doubt, but women main eventing, first they have to break through the layer of women shouldn't main event. That's misogyny.
Mhm.
That's, all the shitty men you've heard about running shows in wrestling that hopefully most of them are gone now. That's like, women can't main event. That's misogyny. What women are having to break through now, and it's rampant in AEW and it's rampant in WWE. I'm going to say the names: Moxley and Cope. Moxley and Cope are the type of guys that, don't think women should main event shows. I know that they're not. You know, Cope is a girl dad, right? Moxley's a girl dad too. I absolutely think that they're the type of guys that when women main event, they're like, oh, that's awesome. Great job, girls. And Roman is that type of dude as well. However, they also think that the stuff they're working on is the most important shit in the world because they're John Moxley and Cope
Mhm.
and Roman Reigns. And so even when their stuff is not resonating, they're like, oh, but Tony, the match is going to be so good. You know, Roman Reigns is like, me and CM Punk, me and Seth Rollins, this is history. Like, that's the second layer, man. Like, the first layer is we're mostly past it. Yeah, that women shouldn't main event. The second layer is the men not realizing when the women have the best story. And like, they're going to take a step back because you may see it as, hey, man, that story's not that great, but they don't see it that way because they have that pride or kind of that fog in their own work. That's 100% what happened with Moxley and Cope.
Mm.
Moxley and Cope sold this match is going to be so good, you have to main event us. And it had nothing to do with Tony and Mariah. They weren't against Tony and Mariah. They were into their match. And I think the same thing is happening in WWE. That's my opinion. I want to be wrong. I want the women to
So
main event.
so here's where I don't like the Punk Rollins Reigns match main eventing. And oh, by the way, yes, I know CM Punk deserves a main event. He should
Yeah.
have had one 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Okay. He's one of the most over wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling. Roman Reigns is maybe, if you put the numbers together, a top 4 box office draw of all time. He's up there. And Seth Rollins is, the architect. So all three guys are super over. I mean, look at the crowd for London. They went crazy for all three of these guys. They were singing their songs.
Wasn't a
Roman,
good crowd either.
Roman Reigns. Yeah, but it was good for that segment. It was good for that segment. Here's my problem with it. You have devalued the Royal Rumble and the Elimination Chamber. That's actually that is the plot that everybody is missing about all of this. Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble. Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble. Now, on paper, everybody's like, Jey Uso, Gunther, Charlotte, Tiffany cannot main event because I mean, Jesus, like those feuds are not hitting. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. Okay, so then elimination, it was always either the winner of the Elimination Chamber or the winner of the Royal Rumble. They're a combinational main event, right? Last year, it was Cody Rhodes who won the Royal Rumble, main eventing WrestleMania Night 2 against Roman Reigns. It should have been Bayley and Io Night 1 main event because Bayley won the Royal and Bayley was as hot as anything they had, that
Yep.
story. But they decided because The Rock is coming back, we're going to have to switch it. Now, what they're going to say is, well, it was going to be Rock Reigns that was going to main event. So what would Cody have done? The winner of the Rumble, who was he going to wrestle? Drew or Seth? I don't know. But my point is, you're devaluing your own Elimination Chamber and your own Royal Rumble by not letting any of these winners main event. Seth Rollins and CM Punk have lost both events. They lost the Royal Rumble. They lost the Elimination Chamber. Roman Reigns also lost the Royal Rumble. So basically, you have three quote unquote losers main eventing WrestleMania. That is the precedent they should not set. Because now what they're saying is don't buy the Royal Rumble. Don't go to the Royal Rumble. Don't go to the Elimination Chamber because these results don't matter.
Yeah.
We're going to put who we want in the main event anyway. So who cares about these other big marquee events? That's the problem.
It is. I find Triple H's words about who has the hottest feud should main event to be ominous always, just because it's an escape door that he's used a bunch of times. And I tell him straight to his face, you're the one who cooled off Bayley and Io from Bayley and Io was hotter than the Roman Cody rematch. The Roman Cody rematch is looked at well because the Mania match was incredible, right? But without The Rock, talking about Roman being auraless around The Rock and Cody in the lead up to that Mania. So Io and Bailey was only less hot because he made it so, right? He kept it off certain shows. She had to do her own vignettes, for crying out loud. Like,
I thought last year, and I think back to how Roman and Cody and that whole thing was built. I thought Roman was losing real steam until he had that one night in Brooklyn where he like they thought he left the building and he came back and he set Cody and Seth up and he saved The Rock. And that was the only time I felt like Roman Reigns looked like the boss. Like he
right.
looked like the boss and The Rock was his sidekick. But um yeah, I mean last year Bailey and Io was as hot as anything they had and it really should have main evented. And it's not like I understand why Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens main evented over Charlotte and Ronda Rousey because it's Stone Cold Steve Austin in Texas. Like there are exceptions to every rule. That was an exception night. Like it just was. But I still think that having having Io, Bianca, and Rhea not main event. I still think it will. I don't know why. I don't know why. And the reason I feel like it is one, they're setting up Evolution. So they're gonna have to have something hot for that. Number two, when he went out there and said, "Oh, you know, everything is earned," and then how hot those three women have gotten, I almost feel like he painted himself in a corner. And then to top it off, the way they're telling the CM Punk story. And oh, by the way, let's not make any mistake about it. This is his story. Seth and Roman are bit players here. It's the CM Punk story.
Yeah.
It feels like to me that CM Punk himself in the character would want to earn a WrestleMania main event. And I just wonder if Reigns and Seth are going to shame him out of it. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. We could record this podcast April 20th morning after, because we will be recording it the night after night one Mania. And I could be
Yep.
like, I was wrong. You know what? They main evented. I don't know, EO, where they're going to open. But back to your whole hottest thing. Shouldn't Jey Uso main event then? Like, if I'm Jey Uso, don't I have every right to say, why am I not in the main event? I'm hotter than any male you have.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to go back and I don't know that maintains while he's wrestling. You know what I mean? But like certainly when he comes out, as a
He
story.
I agree. As a wrestling match, no, because let's be real. Like, Jey Uso's in-ring work, it leaves a lot to be desired as a singles wrestler. And honestly, like, I think Gunther might be of the male performers in WWE. I'm not saying he's the best, but my personal favorite male character in WWE currently is Gunther. I think
I
Gunther
think
is
he's
phenomenal.
at worst the third best in-ring performer, like wrestler, that they have on the men's side, and he has a great case for one, two, three at worst. He delivers over and over again. You said you will get on here on April 20th and be like, "Hey, I was wrong," if you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to do a callback and just say, how often have you, me, or we been right about certain things we've talked about on this show? A lot of times. We've gotten a lot of it right.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have sources. I think you said it exactly right. We've watched WWE for a long time. We predict WWE way better than we predict AEW because we've seen their playbook over and over and over again. So I would like to tee up a victory lap that I'll let you start with. Things we were right about. Holy shit, Naomi as a heel could be the best story in wrestling. Take it away.
Oh, yeah. So you talk about things that are hot. And if hypothetically they were to tell me tomorrow that Naomi and Jade was main eventing night one, I actually wouldn't even argue. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I'm game
Do
there.
it.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go. yeah, honestly, Naomi has just hit a level of performer that I think we all knew she was capable of and could do, but they are finally giving her the platform. From the time she cut the in-ring promo with Bianca and basically admitted to doing the stuff to Jade, she's been absolutely A plus.
Yep.
That vignette she had backstage, the sit down with who she's becoming and tired of being pushed over and proceed with caution. Holy cow. Like I felt,
Top level stuff.
but the thing is, I feel like she's right.
Yeah.
So like I'm supposed to hate her, right? Like I'm supposed to hate her because she's this nasty person who pushed Jade into the car. But I believe I'm agreeing with her. I support her. So the fear here is if you're booking this, is she going to get so hot as a heel that she turns the crowd? And I think that is absolutely going to happen.
I see
I
blue hair Sasha vibes
I
100%.
I think
Like the
she's
crowd's gonna
going
be
to,
like, hell yeah,
yeah,
finally.
she's going to win Money in the Bank. When she does, she's going to get the loudest pop, and she's going to be she. I think it's going to be what happened with Tiffany, but well above that, where she's going to be the hottest woman on the roster as a heel. But she is magnificent. She has knocked it out of the park. The way that the way she attacked B-Fab and Michin together, like she beat both of them up. And immediately she goes to her social media and changes her profile page to pushing somebody else off the edge. Magnificent. And she better win at Mania. Like I know I have this weird feeling Jade's gonna win, but Jade should not win. Jade should not win. Jade should lose. And honestly, I think they might not have wanted it this way. I got I'm not, look, I am not the biggest Charlotte Flair fan. Everybody knows this. But when I saw her and Jade do this, I didn't care. I was like, okay, I don't care. I have zero interest in this match because I'll be honest, like I think Jade Cargill as a is a performer and the look of her and everything is magnificent. I don't think she's a good wrestler. Like she doesn't hold my attention as a wrestler compared to the other women. Charlotte is Charlotte. But I'm almost happy that they go in that direction because I want Naomi to win. And I want Naomi and Bianca Belair to main event SummerSlam. That is what I want. That to me is what has to happen. Because she keeps talking about Bianca. There has to
Yep.
be a reason. But she is magnificent. She deserves all of her flowers, and they better put the rocket to her and just push what they're doing with Stephanie, they need to do with Naomi on the main roster. She needs to just keep winning and she needs to get that belt and she needs to have a nice reign and she needs to be as hot as they can get her.
That vignette showed a layering of character that they rarely get to in men's or women's wrestling, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and WWE is an intellectual property. One of their superpowers is that a lot of the people who've been watching have been watching for so long. And it's funny, this came up. Kevin Owens was making fun of Vince for basically saying, oh, they won't remember that. And Kevin's like, you're insulting their intelligence. They do remember it. They pay attention. They remember a lot. And I agree with Kevin. And one of the WWE superpowers is their audience has been in tune for a long time. And that's why this thing with Naomi is so brilliant and it's going to work.
Mhm.
Everybody freaking knows that she has smiled and hugged and patted every woman who's been through those doors on the back for 15 years.
Mhm.
Patted him on the back, taught him how to rent a car, as she famously did for Mercedes, taught him what hotels were nice on the road, took him out to Waffle House when they were light on money. Like she has been one of the main
Mhm.
welcoming committee role model people backstage for a long time, and she's been a dancing, happy, glow heel on main roster since 2015, and the character's mostly been over the whole time. But also, a lot of the time, you're like, damn, I love Naomi. I wish she'd stand up for herself more. I wish she'd stand up for herself more.
Mhm.
So she packed all that into 2 minutes and 30 seconds for anyone who's been watching for the last 15 years. That's why you, who have been watching for that long and longer, she's justified. Hell yeah. I can't
Yeah.
believe it took her this long to snap. She's going to crack some heads. Good. I've been waiting for this. And like,
M-
it's going to
most
be
com-
such good TV.
most compelling thing on the whole show, including the main event segment, which I did like, by the way, but I thought Naomi's vignette was magnificent, and I thought how she attacked B-Fab and Michin was her. Like, hey, I'm the solo entity now. I'm gonna beat up who I want to beat up. Oh, you two were talking to Jade backstage. Watch this. And honestly, they just got to push her. They just got to push her, and they got to push her to the top. And I think they will. They seem like they've invested a lot in her. So, as we're coming to close here, um, the last thing I wanted to talk about was NXT this past week had Stephanie Vacour, La Primera, the Dark Angel, defending both titles.
Yep.
So she beat Fallon. Oh, she beat Jada Parker in the first match, won the match clean, then got jumped by Fatal Influence. They beat her up pretty good. She's backstage saying, "No, I'm a fighting champion." Then comes out to the ring for her second match, the main event against Fallon Henley, beats her. Then all chaos breaks loose with Jada, with Jordana Grace, with her. They're all fighting Fatal Influence, and her and Jordana have the face up. But Stephanie, of course, clearly the face of NXT. She had two matches. The show drew very well, uh, over 730,000. She is their draw. What did you think of that? And do you think they're getting too dangerously where she's being overbooked?
I mean, that's Stone Cold Steve Austin type booking, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Cold used to show up to Raw, come out, cut a promo, drink some beer, get his ass kicked by someone backstage or ganged up on, and then beat someone. You know what I mean? Like, that's it, really is face of the show stuff. Take a beating backstage and say, no, I'm going to go whoop him in the main event anyway, and then do it. On top of that, she won a match to open the show. So, I mean, you're right. Um, I haven't seen any slowing down of um the fan appreciation of her. I will say NXT crowds are notoriously quick to move off of someone they feel like is being overbooked. So they do need to be careful. They quickly, like, it can be 2 weeks where they're like, all right, we've had enough of this person. So I do think they need to get I think they need to get the North American belt off of her within, by Mania, right? Mania weekend. Um, that's just for balance of the show. One of the reasons why NXT is so good is it is a well-balanced show. They've
Mm-hmm.
had non-belt, non-title storylines. They always have storylines for the belts that they have for the most part. So I think it should be a fun month or two long run, but they need to get one of the belts off of her at some point
Oh.
and just make it a bigger part of the story. Um, but it's fantastic right now. I mean, she's she's an ace.
A cliffhanger for next week. We could talk about it definitively now because there's proof. She the biggest draw in women's wrestling because there is a show that is centered around her that is continuously beating its quote unquote competition. And whether it's Raw, SmackDown, AEW, you can't definitively say a woman is the biggest star on any of those other shows.
Yeah,
Maybe timeless Tony Storm at this point. Maybe.
I'm going to go Homer and I'm still going to say Mercedes. And here's my argument: Tony does not advertise her. When he does, There's evidence of ticket movement that occurs when she's not that occurs greater than when she's not wrestling. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe in the group chat, maybe it didn't make the show, but the average W pay-per-view uh, that she's been on versus the one she hasn't been on since she's been signed is the buy rate is pretty significantly higher. I think it was like 10 or 11% higher. So, and that's at $50 a pop. So, what would NXT draw if they gave Stephanie Vacour a week off? I don't know. What would they draw if they didn't advertise her and she just showed up at 8:20 for a minute and a half? I don't know. She's absolutely the most consistent draw in women's wrestling, though. Yes, she's also being used properly. So
Well,
yeah,
that's the chicken and egg theory here, which is whether it's Tony Storm or Mercedes or Rhea Ripley or Io or Bianca or Naomi or Charlotte or whoever, nobody is consistently pushed as the face of their brand the way Stephanie McClure is.
right.
So they've pushed her, she has delivered, but now the crowd is almost at a point where they accept her as the face of their brand because she opens, she
That piece is
closes,
undeniable.
right?
No other woman is the centerpiece of a brand.
But what I also think I would have hoped has happened or does happen, continue to happen, is with the rise and prominence of Stephanie Vacour in terms of look, she is not American. She is, her English is her second language, but they have presented her in such a manner that it doesn't matter, and she is the top star. That okay, can you do that with Io? Can you do that with Rhea? I felt like they kind of did it with Rhea like a year ago, where you remember with the Raws, where she was like every segment was Rhea Ripley on Raw for like a year. But I don't know if she
Yeah,
actually wrestled in any of those segments, but I know she was on camera. I think Mercedes, I think she's getting where she needs to be in AEW in terms of her character, where she's a heel, she's an obnoxious heel, and they boo her. And yeah, she's always going to get cheered because she has a fan base and a loyal following. But she's where she needs to be. Like her matches deliver it. And I think women's wrestling overall I think it's in a good place. I do think it could have taken a leap forward this week if, let's just say, okay, they thought it was the main event and they did some story on TV. They're like, nope, nope, Io, Bianca, Rhea, or Rhea, Bianca, or whatever combination ends up happening, which we know it'll be a triple threat, is the main event. That would have taken a step forward. I still think it's going to happen. Like I said, I could be totally wrong here. And I think that's the next step that needs to happen, which is women are consistently main eventing these pay-per-views, these PLEs, these TV shows consistently, other than NXT, where it happens every single week.
totally.
Consistently.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground this week. Excellent stuff. Next week we will be back. We promised to do it on this week's segment, or on this week's show, but we just got too much news. We will profile next week our appreciation for Liv Morgan,
Yep.
because you want to talk about the MVP of the WWE Women's Division. I can make a real strong argument it's Liv Morgan, and we will do a Liv Morgan kind of giving her flowers next week.
Yep. And for those ESPN fans out there, I'll do the Wilbon Kornheiser around the horn rundown thing at the end because we covered a lot. You're right. We didn't get to Liv Morgan. We meant to. A couple other newsworthy items. Saraya will be leaving AEW, presumably going to WWE at some point. Interesting to see where she slots in there. They're already having trouble getting Alexa Bliss on TV, so that one's an interesting one to watch. Not to say she doesn't fit; it's just very crowded over on that side of the world. Um, Gail Kim, one of several producers fired from TNA, a couple other guys who produce the men's product, but she's been the head of that women's division for a long time. And without the big names, they've always produced quality TV. So interesting to see where she lands. I know you and I are both hoping for AEW being the spot. She would they're already doing great things. They've main evented 3 of the last 4 shows in the women's division. So thank you, Tony, and whoever's involved in that. But I think Gail Kim would be a fantastic addition to their writing room and really help consistently elevate the women's product on that side, as she's done for over a decade at TNA. So a couple other news items. And then the last one, and I don't know if you know this, happened last night. Our friend Mike dropped it in our group chat here while we were on. Azumi has called out Mercedes Moné for the NJPW Strong Women's Championship. So
I did see
we'll
that.
see.
I did see that before we log in, and that's going to be, I'm going to assume, resurgence.
I would guess. So
Okay.
we'll find out more about that. But we have quite a few dream match Mercedes Moné matches coming up. She's obviously wrestling Athena at some point. Who knows which matches we're going to get in the Owen? We could get the Jamie match. We could get a Willow rematch. We could get Chris number 3. Thunder Rosa is a match people have wanted for a really, really
Oh,
long time.
I wanted to see that match. Yeah,
So
I think we're in a good
lots to
place.
come. Yeah.
The Mercedes, the money train is cooking. Lots of good stuff coming for her. Again, I'm going to be the glass half full optimist here. I still feel like there's a real simple path for the women to main event Mania. I could be totally wrong, and if I am
Let's
wrong, I'm
hope so.
wrong. I will admit that. But man, that story, the way they told it on TV, just I watched it. I walked away. I said, this just doesn't make sense. It's too easy. Like, it wasn't a struggle for a guy who was about the struggle, the voice of the voiceless. It doesn't make sense. But and again, if he had turned as the corporate person for Rock, that would make sense. So more to come on that. We'll see you guys all next week. But thank you. The numbers are phenomenal. We really appreciate the support. You guys love when we talk about the money train, and we will continue to do so. So until then, next week.
Appreciate it, guys. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you.
Yes.